Hi, I'm Julie Thompson. Welcome to the State Senate Plymouth and Barnstable candidate interview. I want to take a moment to thank our candidate for participating in this interview and collaborating with PAC TV to bring this informational programming to residents and voters this election season. Let me explain the format. Today, Susan Moran, Democratic candidate for State Senator, Plymouth and Barnstable District, will be interviewed. Ms. Moran will have 2 minutes to introduce herself, speak about her background, qualifications, and why she's running for office. And then I'll ask a series of questions related to state and local issues. Ms. Moran will be hearing the questions for the first time during this forum. She will have 5 minutes to answer the questions. After the questions, Susan will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. Let's get started with the opening statement. Ms. Moran, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Julie. Hello, my name is Susan Moran. I'm running to be your state senator. I'm running because I have experience to be a powerful voice on Beacon Hill for the Plymouth Barnstable District. As chair of Barnstable County Economic Development Council, I bring legislative experience working on both sides of the aisle on replacing bridges and dealing with water quality. As an attorney, I've helped landowners grow our green economy with solar development. As chair of the Falmouth Board of Selectmen, I had the first Coastal Action Committee to address climate change head on. As a former mental health and addictions treatment counselor, the heartache that addiction brings to families is well known to me, as well as the financial strain it causes business owners. As a trained mediator, I believe in trying to get together on both sides of an issue. As a member of the Barnstable County Legislature, I testified at the State House against Holtec dangerously limiting the Plymouth nuclear plant decommissioning safeguards. As a mom of a fourth grade public school teacher, I believe a community that provides stellar education for every ability is making a great investment in its future. I believe seniors should be able to afford to stay in their homes, and young families must not be priced out. One vital part of a sustainable community is economic development, and its sensible solutions create jobs, such as climate change jobs. Coronavirus will have a real impact on our communities. My campaign is dedicated to making sure staff, volunteers, and voters are all safe. We're also dedicated to making sure everyone who wants to vote can, because our government only works when voters take action. Early or absentee voting is encouraged by town clerks. You can find more information at votemoran.com. Led by former Senate President Murray and Senator DiMacedo, we've been fortunate to have state delegations put party politics aside and come together for us. I will continue that tradition.
Thank you. Okay, so for the first question, individual governors are developing plans for phased reopenings of their states. How do you see your role as senator of our district in this process? And in addition to our economy, what do you see as the priorities for our district with the reopening of the state? What is your specific plan to bring back this economy?
Sure. So
you have 5 minutes, excuse me.
Important item that we need to look at is safety. That has to do with having enough testing for the virus as well as testing for antibodies. So eventually, immunization can be developed. And right now, I'm participating regularly with the Barnstable County emergency committees, which have the best minds who are on the front line. It's public health, it's firefighters, it's folks who are with the municipalities. So I'm going to, as your senator, continue to work just the way that I have, which is listen to constituents. There are a lot of folks who have grave concerns about, for example, an elder person who might be a relative or a friend in a nursing home. We know from recent experiences that the governor has stepped up the monitoring and safety aspects for nursing homes, as well as for the workers who are so important in really taking care of folks. We want to make sure that they are safe and that they have their needs met. With respect to schools, we know that teachers are learning a whole new way of educating students. That's a discussion that I've had with all of the superintendents in the area, most of them in the district, to look at what are their concerns during the coronavirus to keep their teachers safe, to keep the folks that work and take care of the the buildings, and because they're still working on not only food security issues by giving out lunches, but they're also looking at new ways of learning, blended learning, they call it. So looking at the listening to constituent issue, that's one of the first things that we can learn about concerns and learn whether they're being addressed. The second thing is just supporting the governor, and particularly Governor Baker, in his new council, which has a dynamic amount of brain trust, and people from all over the community, Cape Air, folks from various manufacturing and other businesses, to look at what's needed for things like food safety, what will be needed going ahead for the second step after, we're talking going from making sure we have good safety mechanisms on being able to get a handle on the virus first. That's number one. Then secondly, transitioning into opening the economy. And so that the governor's council has come into that the second prong of the approach. We're looking at things like, what kind of social distancing can we proceed with? What kinds of special requirements do certain businesses have? As chair of Barnstable County Economic Development, I was on a program recently with a restaurateur, and how, things like how close should the tables be if we were to go back to actually seating in restaurants? What sorts of support do folks need, whether they're in the Plymouth Barnstable district? Our economy relies heavily on tourism, and that's one thing that we have in common on both sides of the bridge. Those are folks who have unique needs, and I want to be sure. In fact, I've spoken recently with the Senate president. She was just talking with the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, and looking at, how do we reopen buildings? Do we have elevators that only one person is allowed on the time? So looking at every aspect of reopening our state, reopening our community, but that I can't emphasize enough, that just can't happen until we have enough tests for the virus, we have enough tests for antibodies. We look at ways where we can eventually develop a vaccine. And so we've got to take it one step at a time. And I certainly do appreciate the governor focusing and actually extending the reopening until the middle of May. But at the same time, reaching out and communicating not only with constituents, but with experts to get a plan together. And we were just looking at PAC TV has had the town moderator has been doing a great job of communicating the status of all of those, what's working for the governor, what's working for the community, and also concerns. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, question number 2. The current political climate in our country is polarizing, with politicians unable to get work done in the interest of the people, prompting gridlock on many levels. How do you see this affecting the work that needs to happen at the state level, and how do you plan to work across the aisle to create bipartisan relationships? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Julie. So this is what I've been doing with my legislative experience over the last 5 years. By legislative, I mean I right now am Deputy Speaker of the Assembly of Delegates, which is the Cape legislative branch of the government. I've also been chair of the Falmouth Board of Selectmen for 2 years. I continue on the board right now. I have been chair of Barnstable County Economic Development and remain as such right now. And I'm vice chair for Falmouth Economic Development. So when we look at these are nonpartisan positions. So that's my background. My background is in bringing both sides together, both political parties together, and really, most importantly, focusing on the problem, turning it around. I'm a litigation attorney, and the training of factual, information being absolutely critical. I think that that's something that can't be emphasized enough right now with the coronavirus. We can only look at factual information to be advised on when to reopen. And I appreciate Governor Baker prioritizing that. And just in the background of as chair of the Board of Selectmen in Falmouth, creating the first Coastal Action Committee. That is something that it's a bipartisan effort. It's about looking to the future. So there's a parallel. Right now, folks might have, we have the Shining Sea bike path in Falmouth, and there is some coastal climate change issues with some washout, and we want to preserve that asset. So we're looking at, working with permitting in the state to be sure we can preserve that as long as possible. But at the same time, if that area has the climate change effect that we believe it will have, we're also working with the Climate Action Committee to see what sort of action we should take, whether it's retreat, whether it's some way of shoring up, or how we. So it's a two-prong approach. It's dealing with the problem with expert advice now and making sure it's going to work into the future. When you look at the Plymouth Barnstable district and the roadways moving ahead, the transportation bond bill, it's a bipartisan supported endeavor that is going to create a lot of jobs going forward. I'm in full support of that, as is the Senate president. And it's important, you look at the grid block on Route 3. Right now is the time for the transportation bond bill to move forward so that we can repair our roadways and shore up all of the bridges and just general transportation issues while it's not so crowded, while folks are home, and while we're looking at the future of perhaps telecommuting. As a board member of the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority, I'm familiar with things that GETRA is working on, and having a system that has reliable on-time transportation. That's, I think, going to be more and more key going forward, because public transportation is not only good for lowering emissions, it's something that, we're going to be able to adapt to social distancing for a while, and then eventually be able to use more efficiently going forward. I think that the more programs where it saves folks money. It's much less expensive than commuting, and having the emissions of one car dumping in its carbon into the atmosphere. So I look at all the bipartisan efforts that I've undertaken and led in the past. I was on the Bridge Fix team with the Chambers of Commerce, and that's resulted in good work with the Department of Transportation and the Army Corps of Engineers with respect to moving ahead with safe bridges that will accommodate multimodal transportation. These are all bipartisan efforts. And one of the things I see in the legislature right now with the leadership in the House and the Senate is there are good, safe, bipartisan processes coming out right now.
Thank you. Question number 3. Many public and mental health officials and experts are concerned with how social distancing and the protocols of the stay-at-home reality will have on those struggling with addiction, those confronting domestic violence, and even an increased likelihood of suicide. How will you proactively deal with these issues, and how would you address their prevalence and the need for expanded services for support in the short and the long term? Again, you have 5 minutes.
Sure. So I was just watching a Zoom not too long ago with Representative Lenatra looking at the mental health issues, sort of boots on the ground folks who work in this area. And isolation certainly does, it's a factor that increases the risk. I certainly am very proud and will support in any way I can as your senator the recent legislation that the Senate President Spilka and Senator Steer have put together to really take mental health issues and put them on the sort of the same playing field with insurance and in other ways, such as the mental health workers and the entire system, so that there is an acceptable focus that doesn't have the stigma that it used to have, which really has kind of made it the stepchild of healthcare. Because I not only think that that healthcare is important in general, but I'm a breast cancer survivor. I've had many surgeries and I'm very healthy now. It was a long treatment. And I know firsthand that, your emotional and your mental health really is foundational for physical healing. So I'm glad that the Senate President, Senator Sear are have pulled these efforts together, and I'm going to support those as your senator. My background, I actually worked as a counselor in mental health and addictions treatment before I was a lawyer. I have firsthand experience in helping folks who are really have the albatross of weight of addiction issues, whether it be alcoholism or other issues. And more recently, as a leader in economic development, I see the toll that it takes economically on employers. I see that the incredible heartache that it causes with families. It's something we have to put more effort into just taking a hold of. When you look at the issues of addictions and opioids. Insurance has got to have longer coverage. It's not the answer to to have these expensive in-house treatments that people who are in the throngs of addiction at that point really don't have many times they've stopped paying or been unable to pay their insurance. It's not a single answer. We need to absolutely recognize the financial and human toll that opioids have taken on our community, and we need to go ahead and have longer treatment that's really incorporated into the folks' lives who are challenged, so that they can come back and be productive members of society when they're ready and that they want to be. When you look at just the folks who are at home now, in the course of my campaign, I right now am making many phone calls a day, other than Zoom meetings. That takes up most of my time. And it's really about reaching out to folks. What do you need? What is, do you need someone to drop something off or take something to contact a relative? One of the things I know that Julie, you've been involved with for a long time is the Talking Information Center. That's something that Senator DiMacedo had supported. As your senator, I would not only continue to support that, but I see programs like that to have more importance going forward. Folks who are going to be at home for a while for social distancing, not to mention folks who are trying to teach kids and work at home. Those are the kinds of programs that really are able to come into folks' homes. And right now it's used for blind primarily, but that kind of platform I think can be used for everyone. I would couple it with putting more funding into the public broadband. I think that we have to do everything we can to connect people at home and to be sure they can work at home. Thank you.
Question number 4. What do you consider to be the most important infrastructure projects for our district? And how will the current economic state affect their funding and their timeline? You again have 5 minutes.
Well, I think that transportation kind of touches just about everything. First of all, it touches families at home. When you spend, an extra half an hour in traffic on Route 3, that is a half an hour, you could spend at home, enjoying cooking or reading to your family or just really having time to be outside, walk around. So that's one element of it. If we really focus and continue with our efforts to fund transportation. If we look at the blue and green economies, that's something that will benefit us. The mother of invention, in a way. Notwithstanding the heartache of the coronavirus, but it's making us really look at uh, things differently. And I believe we will be looking at things more creatively. What legislation that I would like to move forward would include green and blue economy solutions such as farming the ocean, where folks can stay at home with their children, and then the shellfishing is something that has a time demand that would work well with integrating family life. Looking at electric public transportation going forward, I think that's something that you look at. Cape Air is right now investing in electric airplane solutions. I look at the blue and green economy and transportation as really job solutions. So we have Mass Maritime is one of the schools, along with Bridgewater and where our Senator DiMacedo and though we've got scientific organizations in our district. These are the greatest minds who are looking at ocean turbines for clean energy. Those are engineering jobs that are brand new. There, companies like Hydroid had, looked at ocean exploration. I think that the Plymouth Barnstable district can really become, the seed place for lots of clean industry. We look at our tech schools are working with our employers right now, and in terms of whether it might be a white room for certain technology, or they're very open minded. They're cutting edge. Our students, whether they're students that might want to end up in public safety, or as an electrician or a plumber, or whether they want to go become university teachers. We have a robust educational community here in the Plymouth Barnstable district. I looked at the Plymouth principal, who I've had the Zoom conversations with, and to be die hard on graduation and being able to adapt it to a coronavirus situation or a prom, or things that all of our teachers and administrators and superintendents are thinking about. How do we use the best of our community? This is us pulling our bootstraps up and being inventive. And I think that's one of the ways that the Plymouth Barnstable district will be even more sustainable for the senior community that really needs and wants a sustainable, vibrant community. The young folks who want to have jobs here need to be able to afford housing. That's when you look at transportation issues, we need to have transportation in areas where and housing and sewering, all in the same area. The Barnstable County Economic Development Council that I sit on looks at resources and looks at ways that folks want to live. Folks that are older might want to be selling their large homes. They want a vibrant community as well. So right now we can reinvent ourselves when we safely take care of this coronavirus, which is going to take some time and some commitment.
Thank you. Question number 5. In your opinion, what are the most clear and present differences between you and your opponent? You have 5 minutes.
Sure. Well, the first one is I have a lot more experience related to public service. About 5 years ago, I was asked to run for a selectman position. Before that, I had been a village association president, so I knew a lot about the community's needs. I didn't know much about actual municipal work or committee work, but my youngest, my third, had gone to college, and I thought, wow, I guess I could use another job since I'm sort of losing one. And I decided to run, and since that point in time, someone told me statistics. I've been a very high vote getter, so to speak. And I got that through really having coffee or tea with every single person I could, because I wanted to learn more about the people in the community if I was going to run for selectman. And I also wanted to give folks an opportunity to learn more about me, my background, my beliefs. Those folks, most of whom, all of whom, I hope, still support me. I'm in close contact with now. And what they say they like about me is that they trust my judgment. And although specifically we may disagree on an issue, they know that I work really hard. They know that I am, really committed to try to do the most I can for the community as best I can. I guess I learned that from my dad, my uncle. My dad was in a wheelchair my life, and yet volunteered for the town to do architectural barriers, sort of help with sidewalks. My uncle was my inspiration to go to law school. He was a public defender. And so I guess that the first thing I would say, when you put that together with all of my committee work for economic development, for veterans, for water quality, I can hit the job running in the Plymouth Barnstable Senate, because in addition to my knowledge about the issues, I've also had the opportunity to work with some incredible people. Former Senator Dan Wolf has supported my campaign. The Regional Transit Authority, Cape Cod RTA Administrator, Tom Kerr, former legislator, Eric Turkington, former rep. Dylan Fernandez. I mean, these are folks that I've worked successfully with on projects. So I would say that one of the absolute key differences is experience. If we look at issue differences, I believe in science. I believe that the best way for us to get through and have a successful economy going forward is to first listen to scientists with respect to the coronavirus and support all of our first line defenders, all of our policemen, our firemen, and to support those folks who are on the and who are putting themselves out there so that we can be safe. The other thing I would say is that I, similar to the views of Attorney General Maura Healey, I believe that there's no need for large caliber guns, and I support the current gun laws that are right now on the books. I am not against lawful gun owners by any stretch. I, in fact, am a member of Grandmothers Against Guns. I forget the exact name, but they support background checks. They support, having people who come to the police have support from that from public safety and to increase that. So that's one of the things that we disagree on. I believe completely on on reproductive freedom for women. I think that that's decisions that, health decisions should be made between individuals and their doctors. Other differences. I'm not a screamer. I'm intelligent. I look at a problem. I listen to others.
Thank you. Okay, we're now time for closing remarks. You will have 2 minutes. Anything you want. Go ahead.
Thank you, Julie. I appreciate it. Now more than ever, this district needs a fiscally smart leader who's a proven coalition builder to fight to keep our economy afloat during this time of social distancing. Having been endorsed by Senate President Spilka, Senator Sear, and the Dean, Senator Pacheco, Representatives Peake, Hernandez, Cutler, and Lenatra, as a Democrat, I can join the Senate in a leadership position to push bipartisan legislation for individuals, families, and especially frontline workers in healthcare, public safety, education, and essential services. Those folks who are putting themselves in harm's way while we fight for the testing and tracing necessary to develop a vaccine and beat this virus and get back to work. In the meantime, let's not make it more dangerous for those frontliners by inciting discord or by working against folks who are using the tools we have as individuals, like social distancing. Simultaneously, while letting social distancing do the work of getting us to the other side of the curve, we build consensus for safe back to work plans by using science. Just look at our inventiveness. Teachers are using Zoom. Employers are using new technologies to support working at home, which has had the additional benefit of resulting in cleaner air from less emissions. We are the same nation that climbed out of the Great Depression, led by President Franklin Roosevelt's Back to Work programs, because we all put an oar in the water and pulled together. We can do that now. The innovative ideas I've championed in the past as a local and regional leader are foundational to the challenges we face now. The relationships I have forged equip me with the immediate respect of my fellow legislators to use every tool necessary to get the district up on its feet as quickly as possible after it is safe to do so. I'll be a tireless and unsinkable advocate for you on Beacon Hill, and I ask for your vote. There's more at votemoran.com. Vote early, as the town clerks are encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan Moran, for participating in this interview. For our viewers, thank you for joining us. If you're interested in watching replays of this interview, please visit our website, pactv.org/elections, for replay times and online viewing options, including PAC TV's on-demand and streaming service, PAC TV Prime. And please make your choices heard by voting in the special election on Tuesday, May 19th. Your individual town's clerk's office will have information about voting by mail and in person. Thank you and good day.